Hello, Tide fans. Welcome back to Tide Talk. Sorry we missed you last week. Due to Hurricane Michael, we did miss a show. But we're back this week. We got a lot of stuff to talk about. And just for you viewers, no, you're not seeing double. We are fortunate to have a very special guest. This is my big brother. This is Sheriff Heath Taylor. I'm sure most of you are probably familiar with him.
Maybe not.
Possibly not. But we got a lot of stuff to talk about. We got a couple of games to catch up on. Heath, I've mentioned you several times. I'm going to call you Heath, by the way, not Sheriff Taylor. I've mentioned you several times on the show, just things that we've talked about, the kicking game and that sort of thing. But let's talk briefly about the Arkansas game. I think for the first time, a lot of Alabama fans saw the fact that there's some things that Nick Saban's been saying the whole time.
Yeah,
we got to work on.
Things we got to work on, things that aren't so great and aren't so perfect. It's funny to hear Coach Saban talk to the media about tell us things that are wrong. But actually, I was sitting there screaming and yelling when we missed the field goals. So, we do have things to improve on. And as we get deeper into the year and play better and better talent, we're going to need every aspect of the game.
Yeah, and you know, we've talked a lot about that over the course of this show, this season. You know, everybody keeps saying, well, waiting for Alabama to be challenged, waiting for Alabama to be challenged. You know, every week it's that. And don't get me wrong, you know, there are a lot of things that we need to work on. I think the thing that I was, you know, really happy about in the Arkansas game, they did hit us in the mouth.
They did.
A couple of times. They exposed some things that maybe we weren't prepared for, and Nick Saban said it before the game. I mean, during the week, he was like, look, you know, Arkansas is a much better football team than what their record shows. They've progressively gotten better. They're really good offensively. The coach for Arkansas is a good offensive mind, and they exposed us on several things. Yeah. So what I was happy to see, though, is the way we responded. Yeah. They'd go down and score, and, of course, we get the football and, you know, score in 3 or 4 plays. So I was really happy the way we responded.
And the challenge, everybody's saying I'm waiting for us to be challenged. The challenge is getting those guys mentally prepared to play at their best no matter who you're playing. You see, this week, everybody started getting beat by teams that should not have beat them. Yeah. And it goes back to that mindset. It is the most difficult thing to do to get people to play to their level and what they should be doing rather than the talent that they're playing down. And that's what happens when you play down, you get beat by a team that you shouldn't get beat by. So all the people talking about we're waiting for them to be challenged, that is a challenge every week that he gets those guys ready to play.
And we've talked about it before. That's probably his biggest obstacle.
Yeah, no doubt.
It's the biggest preparation. I don't think it's the other team.
No.
The preparation is getting our guys to stay humble, and I've said before, to stay hungry. When you're coming out every game as a 3-touchdown favorite, it's hard to get 18.
You have a bullseye on your back every week.
Well, and also it's hard to get 18, 19, 20-year-olds, 21-year-olds to stay grounded and recognize the things that they have to do to be able to be successful just about every play, and that's what he talks about, every play. Do you think, Heath, do you think that we took Arkansas for granted?
I don't know that they took them for granted. I think that it's just difficult every week in and week out. I agree with what you said earlier. I think that, you know, maybe a little bit of complacency in the beginning of that game, and then they responded because they got punched in the mouth, and they responded extremely well. And I'm sure there was some things said at halftime and some attention grabbed, and they came out and played like they should. Did they take them for granted? Look, you just said 18, 19-year-old kids, how difficult it is every week to get them prepared.
Yeah.
So I don't know that they took them for granted, but maybe some complacency a little bit in some of the positions.
Yeah. I don't think we took them for granted. I honestly think Arkansas came out with a good plan.
Well, they came out prepared, and I think that that they're like everybody that's going to play Alabama. They're fired up. It's their national title game. You know, they're out there. They have nothing to lose. They go out and play to the best of their ability against us every week.
Yeah.
And that's what we're going to face every week with everybody we play. They're going to be pumped to play us.
Yeah, I think, you know, in the Arkansas game, we saw for the first time, you know, and everybody kind of laughs about it, but we saw for the first time Tua and Jalen on the field at the same time.
Right.
You know, I said early on, actually, you and I talked about it.
Right.
You asked me before
yeah.
the season,
Yeah.
do you think Jalen would line up at the slot or run the
slot
football?
back and H-back, yeah.
And so we see for the first time, we see that happen. You know,
Right.
the very first play where he touches it, he's in the slot and he runs a jet sweep.
Right.
You know, the next play after that, he goes to quarterback. We split Tua out wide.
Yeah.
You know, when we run a quarterback draw for 17, 18 yards.
Right.
And, you know, we talked about this. You know, what do you think Nick Saban is thinking when he's doing that? What's the purpose?
Well, I was shocked. You know, Josh Geddes is the wide receiver coach, and he's the recruiter for our area, and he's a friend of mine. And I had actually asked Josh, are we going to see them on the field? And he said, and no way. You're not going to see them on the same field, on the same time. On
Right,
the field.
field at the same time.
And so when that occurred, I was like, man, you know, so I think, and who knows what's in Saban's mind. I mean, I don't think any of us can predict that. But I think he's trying to get it. I think a commentator said it in the game this weekend with Missouri. Saban's trying to get both of them on the field on film so that the other team is struggling to prepare for what could happen out of that. And,
yeah, I think that's a good point. I mean, you know, as a former offensive coach, you know, a lot of times there would be things that I would do just to get a defense to spend some time preparing.
Yeah.
Although I may not ever do it again.
Sure. You're not preparing for what you're going to do. But maybe that's his plan.
Because what happens is if they're spending some time, and I wouldn't necessarily call that a trick play with having them on the field. There's some things that they could do out of that because Jalen's able to throw the football, run the football. I wouldn't call it a trick play. But if they're spending time on that, it's taking time away from what Alabama is normally going to do.
Well,
so whatever his reason, it's effective.
Sure. Well, in the first game, Jalen runs a jet sweep. The second game against Missouri, they toss him the jet sweep and he throws it to Damian Harris. So there's all type of things that can happen when those two guys. Now, I will say this, you know, do I as a fan like them both being on the field at the same time because of the potential for both of them to get hurt and us be without a quarterback? Not necessarily, but man, it's exciting to watch while it's happening. But if I really think about it, I don't know that I like both of those guys being on the field at the same time.
From a coaching perspective, it's probably nerve-wracking. It's probably nerve-wracking.
Yeah.
I mean, you think about that. If something were to happen, you're talking about your number one and number two guy going out.
And you don't think they'll do it on purpose? You don't think those defensive guys
Well,
will
I don't know if you paid
intentionally do it on
attention to
purpose?
that second play in the Arkansas game when they split Tua out wide. That DB took a shot.
Yeah.
You know, they didn't show the whole thing. He was like, I'm going to get my shot in real quick.
No doubt.
We're going to talk some more about that. We're going to talk about the Arkansas game a little bit more when we come back from our break. But I do want to mention just, you know, we talk about the offense a lot, but I want to talk about the defense when we come back because, boy, have they not, you know, surprised a lot of people.
Oh, yeah.
So we're going to take a quick break. Tide fans, hold your seats. We're going to take a break on behalf of Bob English and State Farm. We'll be right back with more Tide Talk.
State Farm agent Bob English is here to help protect all the moving parts of your life with auto, home, life, and financial services. Bob English and his team make it simple to bring together what matters to you. Get to a better state. Call Bob today.
All right, welcome back, Tide fans, to the second segment of Tide Talk. So we were wrapping up the first part, just talking about them being on the field at the same time. And I'll just close that by saying, I think that obviously Coach Saban, Loxley, those guys are way smarter than we are with respect to what they're doing. I think it's exciting. I think they have such respect for Jalen and what he has done by staying, giving up 1 year of eligibility and that sort of thing. I think they're just rewarding him with some time. I don't know if you know it, but when he comes on the field, especially like that, I mean, the crowd goes nuts.
Yeah, they do. In this past game, when they were on the field together, and he caught the pass, the first time he had caught a pass, the stands went absolutely crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a exciting thing to be in the stadium and see the respect that our fans has for Jalen. And then I had the heart attack thinking about when he got tackled, if he got hurt. But that's beside the point. So.
Especially as Tua goes down. But I want to go back a little bit. I want to talk about the defense. The defense against Arkansas got hit in the mouth a little bit. They were exposed a little bit. Arkansas was doing some different formations. They were spreading guys out and then throwing back to the tight end, which we had not really seen a whole lot of in the middle of the field. I read an article. Mac Wilson said it was one of the worst games he's ever played.
Well, Mac Wilson called everybody out this week in practice before the Missouri game over the Arkansas game.
Including himself.
No, he called himself out first.
Right.
And said, we've got to do better on defense and we've got to step our game up. And, it's hard to not like a guy who's willing to call himself out first that he didn't play so well and then get his teammates to step their game up as well.
Yeah, and we've said it before. He's a fairly young player as it relates to being the play caller.
Sure.
He's having to make some adjustments. And, what Arkansas was doing was making changes at the line of scrimmage, which is causing him to look to the sideline to find out what the change is going to be. And he even admitted he missed some. There were times when he just did not communicate quickly enough and correctly. And so you take that into consideration, that's a lot to put on a guy who now is the starting linebacker, but he's the play caller, and he's got to get the calls into the people in a timely fashion so we can make our own adjustments.
No question about it.
He mentioned later on in this article that I read that he and his position coach had a long conversation after the Arkansas game, and they talked a lot about watching more film to be more prepared. Not just that they didn't watch film, but they watched more film so they could be more prepared for the things that Missouri was going to do. And I think it showed.
It showed.
I think it showed this Saturday night.
You watched, Davis on the defensive line and how pumped up him and Williams were. The entire game, they were just extremely excited to play and ready to play that game like they knew their game plan and they knew what they needed to do. And you can see that on the field.
They played with a little more confidence.
They did.
They didn't look as confused, in my opinion.
No, they looked like they were having fun and out there playing the game and knowing what they were doing.
Exactly. And that certainly plays in when you have a better understanding of what you're trying to do. You can play a little more freely. You can play a little more wide open, as opposed to if you're not real sure, now you're going to be a little reserved. And they've talked about it before. They played a lot of plays in the Arkansas game with hesitation.
Yeah.
It was a specific word that I picked up on, that they played with hesitation. And you can't really do that at that level or you're going to get exposed.
That's right.
And
it's so fast. talking about, Wilson making the picking up the plays and the positions at the line of scrimmage. I mean, you're literally talking about 2 and 3 seconds to pick up what somebody's doing.
Right.
You're not talking about 10 and 15 seconds, which isn't a long time to begin with, but you're talking about 2 and 3 seconds to him for him to recognize what their set is and then communicate that to the defense.
Well, look, it was a big concern coming into this game, the Missouri game. I mean, Missouri's a top 10 offensive team in the country at the time. Locke is probably a first-round draft pick, fantastic quarterback. He was missing a couple of receivers, but in the same breath, we were missing, we were missing some guys on the defensive side too.
Yeah.
But it was a concern coming in, and I firmly believe, and our offense struggled a little bit Saturday, but I firmly believe our defense said, "Hey, we got y'all this time."
Well, the defense, you could see the little bit of transition at halftime. When they came out at halftime, I mean, they shut him down.
Yeah.
Basically in the second quarter, they shut him down. I mean, I think they scored 10 points in the first quarter, and that was it. I mean, they made an adjustment. The defense made an adjustment quick, and he had pressure every time he went back to throw the ball. He was getting pressure outside and in on the line of scrimmage, and it made a huge difference.
Well, we did a lot of things, and not a lot of folks will recognize, and viewers, you may know, and maybe I don't know what I'm talking about, but a lot of folks probably didn't recognize the disguises. They talked a lot about, I read articles where Mac Wilson and Deontay Thompson, them guys are talking about the disguises and Nick Saban. They knew we had to do that to confuse Drew Lock.
He's a good quarterback.
And look, when he had a chance to throw the football, he threw it on the money.
Yep.
To the only possible spot it could go to for them to make a play, and he was throwing it there. So we did some really good things, not just athletically. We got guys that can make plays. Very first play of the game for them is a pass, and we pick it off.
Right.
Savion Smith makes a pick. Now they made some adjustments, and so athletically, we're able to do things. You got Quinnen Williams up front who's dominating in the middle, and Isaiah Buggs and Raekwon. But we did some things mentally, and so that was, as a former coach, that was really good to see for me, because they were switching up things, and then they'd make their change, and we'd switch it again, and we were causing some confusion, and it was obvious.
Well, and I love the attitude of Raekwon. I mean, he knew he was going to get double teamed this year. He's made comments to the media about that.
Yeah, we talked about that.
And he said, "Hey, if they're double teaming me, that means somebody else is open." And that's what's happening with our defense now. We're getting into the defense is feeding off each other, and I mean, I've always been critical of our DBs.
Yes, you have.
I always have been critical of not facing and looking for the ball, and over the last several years, and this year, I mean, there's a few times that I've gotten a little upset with them, but for the most part, I don't even have much to fuss about this year, even with our DBs.
Well, we've talked about that a lot. You and I have had several debates about that.
I'm always fussing, and if anybody gets a first down, it just sets me off. I mean, I can't stand for somebody to get a first down against us. But, I mean, I have to realize that that's going to happen, but I don't like it.
Well, we're going to take another break, and we're going to come back and talk a little bit more about that. I want to mention a couple of calls that we did receive. Thank you, viewers. We did get a couple of calls. I want to address Miss Moore for her phone call saying that she loved the show. We really appreciate that. I hope that you spread the word and have other people call in. I want to also address Ron Borders. He called in with a few questions. So thank you, Ron, for the call. To your question with respect to what's Jalen's future. Well, Jalen, by playing in that fifth game, gave up a red shirt year. So he basically said he's an Alabama guy. He's going to stay at Alabama,
right.
Which is the reason that you see all the outpouring of support for him because he chose team over Jalen Hurts.
Right.
So I think that's a huge statement to that kid and the character that he has, and he's accepted that role as a backup, even though he was 26-2 as a starter.
But he's improved drastically.
Tremendous. He has improved tremendously. Of course, he's had to.
Yeah.
Now, with respect to your part of the question, Ron, for Tua, I think Tua and Jalen have a great relationship. I think that, they both feed off of each other. If you've watched the games, and I know that you have, every time Jalen does something well, Tua's the first one to meet him and greet him and congratulate him. And the vice versa. When Tua does something well, Jalen's the first one there. So they have a really good relationship. I think there's respect there. Mm-hmm. I think, Tua watched Jalen all of last year basically and probably learned some from the things that he done well and the things that he didn't do so well.
Right.
So I think that there's a great relationship there, and I think they'll continue to do well. With respect to how Nick Saban's handled it, it's tough. I mean, I said at the beginning of the year, I didn't think that Tua would start. I said Jalen Hurts was going to be the starter. How do you bench a guy that's 26-2? But I guess that's the reason that he's the head coach at the University of Alabama, and I'm not, because he's making about $10 million a year. So I think Coach Saban's handled it really, really well. And, I guess he's fortunate to have the situation that he has, to have a guy that's the backup that is, again, 26-2, went to 2 national titles, and has a championship ring.
I mean, we're fortunate to be in this situation with these two guys. Coach Saban has handled it tremendously well. He has a great respect for Jalen, and you can see that. You can see it the way he plays him. You can see it how he's handling it. He has just a tremendous amount of respect for Jalen, and the fans are seeing that, and it's went over to the fans. I mean, they have the same respect.
Well, again, thank you for the calls. Y'all continue to call in. Here's the number right here on the screen. If you've got a question, we'll try to address that question. If you just want to make a comment about the show, please do that. We're going to take a break on behalf of Bob English and State Farm. Hold your seats, Tide fans. We'll be right back with Tide Talk.
Savings this big come with their own theme music. State Farm agent Bob English in Phoenix City can help you get all the discounts you deserve with a free discount double check. After all, real savings should fold, not jingle. Get to a better state. Call Bob today.
Okay, welcome back, Tide fans. So we were wrapping up the last segment regarding the Missouri game and how our defense stepped up. And look, I think without a doubt, we did see a little bit of offensive struggle. And it's really tough to say offensive struggle. We scored 39 points, and still to this game, we're 7-0. Our starting quarterback's yet to take a snap in the fourth quarter.
Right, and by all practical purposes, he could have played at the end of that game had we needed him.
That's right. I mean, there was some concern. I mean, he tweaked his knee in the Arkansas game. Had another little issue in the Missouri game, and it was stated that he was able and actually wanted to come back.
Right.
But there was really no need. But our defense certainly helped us out. And it's what I've said before. Man, the defense is able to play a little bit more freely when the offense is putting up numbers like they're putting up.
Sure they are. I mean, a little bit of pressure off of you.
Take some pressure off. I mean, and you think about that in years past. Man, I mean, I can just tell you, I'm sitting there thinking, good grief, thank you for having a great defense.
Yeah, I mean, we're scoring 9 points, in years past. And so we rely on our defense to shut them down, to not even make 9 points. I mean, that's tough.
And that happened a lot.
Yeah.
Now we're getting to see, an explosive offense with a ton of explosive players. Jerry Jeudy, I read an article, he's like the top in the nation with respect to explosive plays. He's averaging 27.1 yards a catch or a play. And the next guy closest behind him is 25.2, I believe. So, I mean, we have so much. The other thing that I read, and I was going to say we have so much talent. There's such a huge I guess, disparity, if you will, of talent, which we're not accustomed to seeing offensively. We're used to seeing Calvin Ridley, get targeted, and Julio Jones. But there are 4 or 5 guys with more than 15 catches.
Sure.
And that's incredible.
That's right.
So we're spreading the ball around a little bit, but we did see a little bit of struggle. We got in the red zone. I think Tua's knee injury bothered him a little bit. I mean, he threw some balls that I haven't seen him throw. He left some things high. But again, as we all have said, fortunately we've got a guy that's in Jalen Hurts that can come off the bench and be a absolute key component to the offense. Throws a nice touchdown pass. Throws a great ball to Judy over 39 yards over the top. So he's passing the football a little bit, and that presents a bigger challenge for defenses because now it's not the Jalen Hurts of old. Let's stop the run and make him throw. Now Jalen Hurts is really staying in the pocket a little bit more, and still has the capability to pull it down and run it. And so it's really exciting to see that. It's really exciting to see us spread the ball around. What I'm waiting to see, Heath, is Alabama run the football like Alabama's been known to do. We still haven't done that yet.
Well, we've got a stable of running backs. I mean, just absolutely from Jacobs to Harris to Najee Harris to all of them. I mean, all of the guys we got, even Robinson, down to Robinson. I mean, the kid he's a stud. I mean, 4 awesome running backs, and I just think that we've got so much going on that
it's hard to get everybody the ball.
It's hard to get everybody the ball. What I want you to tell me, and what I want somebody to tell me, is how does the University of Alabama, who is potentially right now maybe one of the greatest football programs in the history of college football, arguably, and we can't get kickers. I mean, I don't understand where we are with that. The guy this weekend, I was excited. He didn't miss a field goal. He didn't miss an extra point. I was.
He actually did. He missed the 52-yarder.
Oh yeah,
he must have been going to get something to drink or something to eat at that point.
I mean, but 52 yards and him missing. He actually had plenty of leg when he missed it. He just missed it left.
He missed it left.
So, that one I can excuse. It's the extra points, point after attempts. 15, 20-yard field goals that we're banging off the each side of the goalpost, and we're pulling them or shanking them from a chip shot.
Yeah.
I mean, we're arguably the greatest program in the country, and we struggle to make a field goal.
Well,
it just drives me insane.
I've got a response to that. You ain't gonna like it.
Well, I probably won't, but
I've got a response to that.
But saying we score enough points, we don't need a field goal. I just don't think that's gonna last. I mean, I know that's your response. I know response is.
I mean, the response is this. It is a legitimate concern. It is a legit. Let me rephrase. It's a legitimate question. Here's what I'm going to say. It's kind of like me telling you years ago about the DBs, and you used to fuss all the time. Them jokers won't turn around and Well, what does it take for that quarterback and that receiver to throw a dime just about every time, and would they do it enough to beat us? And I used to say that to you all the time.
I understand.
Yes, they're going to be really good quarterbacks, and they're going to have really good games, and they're going to be really good receivers, and they're going to have great games, but are they going to do it enough to beat us? So that same philosophy applies to the kicking game. Is it going to be bad enough for us to lose? And this year we're 7-0.
I don't know about losing, but it's bad enough to give me a heart attack.
Well, and I understand that, but it's what I've told other people before. I'll take winning national championships and SEC championships and being in the playoffs every year with what we have, as opposed to having a really good kicker and not making it there.
But the point is, if we had a kicker, we wouldn't have went into extra time in the national title game. We'd have won that game outright.
Well,
with a 20-yard
Sure.
chip shot, we win in regulation.
Sure.
Instead, we have to go into overtime and beat Georgia with a phenomenal play
by a freshman quarterback and a freshman receiver.
A freshman receiver and a freshman quarterback. But had we had a kicker, we'd have won that game in regulation. If we had a decent kicker, we'd have hit the Auburn kick six that they returned on us. That's a long kick, but still it was a makeable field goal. And I get your point. It's a struggle for me to watch.
Seeing the number one team in the country, a program that's arguably the best program ever in the history of college, to struggle from a kicking perspective constantly.
And I've heard so many things, I don't know what to believe.
Well, the rumor is that
Saban
he
won't
doesn't
give scholarships to a kicker. So maybe that's it. Maybe.
Hey, if anybody knows that answer, call into the show and tell us.
because I don't know the actual facts. Maybe we don't give scholarships. Maybe it's strictly walk-ons. Or maybe that's a rumor and we do give scholarships and they're just not – it's so much pressure at Alabama that they don't kick the ball well. I don't know the answer.
Well, I do know that we have the number one kicker coming in next year. I do know that. I know that
on
guy,
scholarship?
That is,
or is he just coming?
I don't know. I can't answer that question, but I know that we have recruited the number one kicker in the country. And I could be wrong about that, but that's what I've read and heard and talked to friends
I may
about.
live a year or two longer if that's the case.
But, we've had folks that were supposed to be pretty good in the past, so we'll see how that shakes out. Big game coming up, Tennessee coming off a big win against Auburn. They're riding really high.
They're going to be tough
We're going to be playing in Neyland Stadium, which is a tough place to play. I've been there. It's an incredible venue, 107,000 people. Rocky Top blaring just about the whole time. Give me your take.
Look, they're going to be tough to handle coming off of a big win. They're excited. They're pumped up. They think they can take down the number one team in the country, and I think it's going to be tough. We've got to go to their place. And they're going to be prepared. Pruitt, he knows everything about us, just like Kirby, and he was in our program for a long time. He knows what we do. He's going to be prepared for us. He's going to get his people prepared. But in the same sense, we know Pruitt, so I don't have any doubt that we're going to be prepared for them. We just got to go out and perform and play to our level, and I think we'll be fine.
It's another SEC game. I don't believe our guys will have an issue. It's Tennessee Hate Week.
Oh yeah,
it's Tennessee Hate Week. I read a buddy of mine sent me a screenshot today that was Butch Davis, who's the former coach, that said, I left Tennessee and came to Alabama so I could finally be a winner. He goes, when I get into Neyland Stadium on Saturday, I'm gonna come out a winner for the first time.
Well, I was with Mal Waldrop, a friend of mine who played at Alabama this weekend, and Mal was talking about,
Oh, those were those good seats y'all got.
He said, I just remember so many years that we lost to Tennessee in a row.
That's right.
And, he said the Tennessee game was, that was the game. Everybody at the start of the season, everybody was like, are we going to beat Tennessee this year? So they've been rebuilding, and I realize they've had some tough years, but that's always a strong game, and historically has been a big game for the University of Alabama. So it's going to be fun to watch, and they're going to be a handful after coming off such a big win this past week.
Well, Tua is going to be ready to play. I read that today. He's banged up a little bit, and they're going to see how he goes. It's going to be day to day. I don't know that Devontae Smith's going to be able to play. He's got a pulled hamstring. But
you saw that when it happened.
But I knew it immediately.
He caught the ball and immediately tried to get out of bounds. He knew he had pulled it.
But it will be a good game. It will be a good SEC road game. You want to make a prediction?
I think we win by 21.
I think that they're going to try to do some things to confuse us. But at the end of the day, we got way more talent.
Yeah.
Way better talent, and we'll be very well coached. So I'm going to go ahead and jump out there and say 55-17.
Well, I think we're a three-touchdown win. I hope we can hold them to 17 or less. If we do, I'll be happy with that. In their stadium, it's going to be tough, and and we'll see how many points our offense can put up.
Yep, we'll see. Well, brother, thanks for being on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Tide fans, thank you. Join me right here again next week, channel 7 and 207, right here with Tide Talk, and Roll Tide.
Roll Tide.